20% of the people are the only people who are actually embracing the new regime. If the government really needs to push the new regime, they will have to certainly come out with a lot of measures.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Invest Smart, a show where we talk about all things related to your money, your savings, and your investments. I'm Avni Raja. Well, the full budget for 2024-25 is round the corner. Expectations are high, with taxpayers hoping for some relief one way or the other, especially with the rising cost of living. Well, we all have a huge wish list, but what is realistically possible? To talk about that, joining me on the show is Nitin Baijal, Executive Director, Deloitte India. Nitin, thank you so much and welcome to the show. So obviously this time round expectations are quite high. The president has said it's going to be a historic budget this time round. But let's talk realistically. Start with what taxpayers can expect on the income tax slabs front. What is your own view?
Well, we of course did not have too many things happening when the interim budget had come out, and of course it was expected that nothing will happen in the interim budget. Now, this is going to be a fully blown budget, and we have to really see what the finance minister has actually got in that bag and what they are looking at. Now, while just a very simple thing, we really need to see what the government is looking at in terms of the new regime and the old regime. Because while we see in the past couple of years, new regime is something which probably, or the simplified regime as they call it, is something that they are intending to, focus upon. If you could see, one of the examples is standard deduction was included as part of new regime. But having said that, the question mark that still is there is on the fact that is a new regime going to be something which will be embraced by the people. uh, Statistics don't show that. While we go back into 23-24, I would say still about 15 to 20% of the people are the only people who are actually embracing the new regime. If the government really needs to push the new regime, they will have to certainly come out with a lot of measures so that people are able to embrace the new regime. Of course, they will not get the deductions which are there under the old regime into the new regime, which is very clear. But that's the reason that they want to keep it simplified. But having said that, they maybe need to tweak the standard deduction, which is sitting about 50,000. Given the all-time high costs in terms of medical and other inflationary costs, I think the standard deduction factor needs to be really up from about 50,000, maybe getting it to about a lakh 50,000, 1,50,000 rupees. For senior citizens, probably maybe making it further higher because they've got really high medical costs. And why I'm emphasizing a lot on medical costs is because the Section 80D, which is on the medical premium, is available only under the old regime and not on the new regime. So, which means that if we really want to, do something under the new regime, we should bring out these measures. That's one thing. And before I pause, I also want to just emphasize a lot on the slab rates. I think suddenly we are seeing that we've got 5%, we've got 10%, we've got 15%, we've got 20%, we've got 30%. So we've got five different slabs or percentages of income tax that is there. Why make it so complicated? Why not just sort of keep it at 10, 20, and 30, and then maybe reduce the lower slab so that the exemption limit goes higher, and it simplifies. So I think if these two measures are done, somewhere or the other, we will see a change of people moving from the old regime into the new regime.
The other aspect also in terms of the flexibility on switching between the old and new regimes, especially for business professional taxpayers. Do you think some more flexibility should be brought in, because right now it's quite difficult? You can only do it once and things like that.
Oh yes, of course. That's an important point because you see, while that fact is there, we have to also bear in mind that while the policymakers put this together in the past, yes, it was possible. Now the new regime is the regime that is, if you don't sort of opt for the old regime, then it's the new regime that comes into picture. Which means that if you've accepted one regime, then it is only at the time when you actually file your return you can make those changes. I think from a perspective of a common man or an Aam Aadmi who may not have dwelled too much into the details of what the legality is, there is going to be certainly complexity for them. So therefore, there has to be a bit of flexibility available. But I think they should also, if that flexibility has to be given, that should be capped also, because I don't. There should not be also a situation where people are just sort of making changes every now and then, which makes it more and more complex for the government. So I guess there should be a cap, but the flexibility should be available, maybe keeping it twice in a year.
So while Nitin, you are of the opinion, and that is also something what a lot of people say, is that the new tax regime should be and possibly will be made more attractive. But there is still a large number of people, majority really, who are still, using the old tax regime. Do you think any tinkering could be done on that front, whether it's ATC or other benefits that fall under the old tax regime?
Well, as I said, that the focus that we see right now, and as I said in the past couple of years, has been primarily on the new regime, and they haven't done anything in terms of the old regime. So, which does not look very clear that they would actually make any kind of changes in terms of the old regime. But yes, it's been long called for. ATC, 1,50,000 rupees, 8 years, or sorry, 10 years. 2014 was last when actually we saw an increase in the number. So we've given where we have reached in the last 10 years with such amount of inflation and other factors and so on and so forth. There, of course, has to be some bit of tinkering on ATC, provided they are looking at keeping old regime at par with new regime. Just one point, Avni, which I wanted to sort of highlight, since you talked about the old and the new regime. If you actually go into statistics and look at the income per se of people, we have to see that there is a particular number, I think about 15 to 16 lakhs, where which is actually a point where you could get into a neutrality between the old regime and the new regime, which means that if you are let's say getting your deductions are crossing, let's say about 3,75,000 or a little above that, and if your income is about 15 to 16 lakhs, then it probably will always make sense to go into the old regime. It will never make sense to go into the new regime. And the bigger factor in the old and the new regime is, of course, the house rent allowance, because that's a big number. While standard deduction, of course, is similar in these, but ATC, ATD, 150, 75, 2 lakh 25,000 gets over there. And HRA is certainly a higher number. So, as I say that they have to, if they have to really do something, then the standard deduction factor needs to go up, and the income tax rates need to be changed from 10, 20, or 30 as compared to the 5, 10, 15, and so on and so forth.
HRA that you mentioned, that was going to be my next question, really, because obviously the property prices have gone up, rentals have increased. In keeping on par with all of that, there seems to be some need to increase the HRA. Again, I don't think we can expect everything, but how important do you think is this going to be as far as the possibility of it coming in the budget?
If we go back into the Income Tax Act, it's very clear that it is available only for Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. So it is still restricted to these four cities where the number is at about 50%. Rest of the places in the country is at pegged at 40%. I think that number of 40% should be brought at level of 50% with Delhi, Chennai, and Kolkata. To that extent, maybe we got cosmopolitan cities like Bangalore. Now even Gurugram, the NCR region, they're all extensions of Delhi. So per se, it should not we should not make a difference of 40% and 50% deductibility between a person staying in Delhi and or a person staying in Gurgaon, for that matter, in Bangalore. I think at least it needs to be extended to larger states and tier two cities also, because cost of living has certainly gone up very high.
Right. On the other front, the capital gains structures, do you think we could see any kind of tinkering? Because right now there has been for a while a call to sort of, bring the capital gains parity with them, whether it's in different asset classes or the entire structure be simplified. How likely do you think is that this time now?
The wish list is very big. It's actually a very big wish list, because for anyone, again, I'll come back to a common man. when you look at let's say unified, what is the tax rate? What is a unified tax rate under long-term capital gain? It varies. I mean, if you're there from a property perspective, I think it's somewhere about 20%, and
Yeah.
if you actually go into equity shares, is about 10%. So why is that differential? And the holding period is also different under different classes. For an immovable property, it'll probably be about 2 years, and for an equity share, it's about 12 months. So there has to be some bit of parity, some bit of a level playing field, and making it simple.
Hmm.
If you actually go into debt and equity funds, I think it is too complex.
Yeah.
Somewhere it's 10%, somewhere it's 20%, somewhere it's 20% with an indexation. So that has to be. So they need to just come back and make it simple. That here, look, if it's short term and we really want to tax short term and not be invested for a long time, then it's important that probably you do it at the slab rate, which primarily is happening from in most of the cases. And in long term, then they need to say that let's say we can keep it at about 10%, or we can keep it at 15%. uh,
Hmm.
you're introducing indexation, you're not introducing indexation at places. So there is a lot of complexity in and around it. They should try to keep it simple and straight.
Okay. The other aspect that we might see some announcement on, especially given the recent commentary both from the government, SEBI has also talked about it, is the steps to discourage retail participation in FNO segment.
Yeah.
So possibly moving the FNO from the head of business income to speculative income, something of that sort. Is that a possibility? Because the government also does make a lot of money when it comes to the taxation from this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hold a personal view on that, but yes, what I read and what I understand, futures and derivatives is something which is become a big thing. People are trading a lot on that. If the government, and I think there is a thought prevailing that we see amongst the policymakers, while I read a lot of literature around it, clearly mention that it's important that futures and derivatives should probably not be categorized as a business income. It should be categorized more as a speculation income. If you technically look at it, the answer is yes, because it is speculation actually. And there is so will the government actually bring that under the speculation head and move it away from the PGBP, which is profit and gains of business information? Maybe yes, because they would probably like to discourage people from getting into a speculation because business, because it gets into a lot of it creates a situation in the market where people are invested, and they probably get lost because of all the complexity that gets involved because of futures and derivatives. So I guess maybe it can be categorized as speculation income. One factor that is important from a speculation income perspective is that I guess when you're doing profit and gains of business profession, you have a possibility of carrying forward the losses for about 8 years. Whereas in futures and derivatives, or for that matter, if it's a speculation income, then it will be only about 4 years. And that set off will be only against the speculative income. So that makes it fairly stringent. But yes, will in that case discourage people to getting into it because yes, it's a complex market.
All right, we'll leave it there, Nitin. Thank you so much for taking the time out and talking to us.
Thanks. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you. Bye.